All right, well, we do actually have a raging debate right now, just a few hours away from the committee's reveal. What do I think they're going to do? We're going to go through it, and I'm just going to give my top four on what I think it's going to be. So, number one, I would imagine it would be Michigan. Right now, you are looking at the strength of record, which is the holy grail metric. You can see Michigan at number two. Actually, Washington at number one, but when you factor everything in with the FPI, Michigan number one in terms of FPI, Washington number 13. I don't think they're going to put Washington at number one based off of all their close games throughout the season. I understand Washington beat Oregon twice. They're going to be number two. I think Michigan is number one. Washington is number two. Both of them undefeated. There's no debate there. This is where obviously it gets pretty crazy. You have Alabama beating Georgia. Georgia is virtually out. And let me just say before I even get into this, good riddance to the 14 playoff. Georgia had won like 29 straight games. They lose one game at the end of the season in their conference championship, and they don't even get to play for a national title. How about Ohio State? They go 11-0 with a first-year quarterback. They lose on the road to possibly the number one team by 6 points after outgaining them, and they don't have a chance to win the national title. The 14 playoff is pathetic. Anyone still advocating for it is ridiculous, and this year proves it. And it's not even just these games proving the 14 playoff is so ridiculous. Players will sit out the other New Year's Six games because they're meaningless. Marvin Harrison Jr. will not play. You're going to have Georgia players sitting out. The 14 playoff has got to go. Thank God. But guys, let's get to the big reveal. What will the committee do? You have Michigan at number one. You have Washington at number two. I think at number three, they're going to go Texas. They're going to go Texas at number three. Now, I will say this idea where we make a conference championship win the holy grail is kind of ridiculous. Like, what type of value do we really put on Texas beating an Oklahoma State team who lost to UCF 45-3? But I understand Texas beat Alabama. It's an amazing non-conference win, even though it happened in week two. They're very likely going to be number three. There are people trying to say, what if Texas just gets left out? Alabama might jump them because they beat Georgia. And listen, the nuance behind that Alabama-Texas game in week two is that Alabama had a brand new quarterback. They're obviously now a completely different team considering Jalen Milroe has developed. I'm not saying, the head-to-head shouldn't matter. This is why we need to expand the playoff. The idea where we're splitting hairs and saying, oh, we have to put all this emphasis on a week two game with a second with a quarterback starting his second game is just ridiculous. But listen, I think they're going to go Texas at number three. They have not gone away from keeping Texas in front of Bama after what happened in week two. And even though Alabama gets a significantly better win against Georgia, I think they're going to keep Texas at number three. And then at number four, here it is. It's Alabama versus FSU. FSU right now sitting undefeated. They're a conference champion. They beat LSU in week one. Who gets in at number four, folks? It's going to be Alabama. Alabama will be the number four team. When you look at the strength of record, I always say it decides it. Well, this year, they would have Texas just completely out of it, which is interesting to me because obviously strength of record is not accounting head-to-heads. And the other thing that you have to understand when it comes to all of these metrics, I saw people touting the ESPN, playoff predictor saying FSU has a 97% chance. Yeah, the thing has no nuance, meaning it cannot understand injury. The issue with FSU when people try and tell me they're undefeated with Jordan Travis, okay? Quarterback is the most important position in college football. We all know what would happen in the playoff. They looked horrible against, I wouldn't say honestly, they did look pretty bad against Florida, but that game last night with their third string quarterback against Louisville, oh my goodness, it was terrible. And I've seen multiple big outlets, multiple big people that have sources predict Alabama to make the playoff. This is not some SEC conspiracy. Alabama is better. It's unfortunate for FSU. They suffered a severe injury. This is not a Cardale Jones situation. They did not beat a team 59-0 like Ohio State did against Wisconsin. Guys, let's remove all the ghosts. Let's remove all the ridiculous conspiracies. Alabama is better. It's sad that Florida State had the terrible injury, but let's not do this hissy fit where we whine and moan like little children, because, an SEC team gets in. It is what it is. Alabama, they've got crazy good wins. FSU had a really catastrophic injury. If FSU gets into the playoff, we're going to see a TCU 2.0 situation in the playoff semifinal, very likely. Some people think about how crazy this is. Michigan is sitting there at the number 1 seed. You have people predicting FSU is going to be the 3 seed. If you're Michigan and you're the 1 seed, you're going to tell me that FSU, I'm not going to get to face FSU? Are you kidding me? I'm the 1 seed? How crazy would that be? People actually think FSU is going to be the 3 seed and face Washington, and Michigan possibly gets Texas. I don't think that happens. Will they actually go by the ironclad strength of record metric, that would have Texas out? Again, it comes down to that head-to-head, the nuance of it. And there's an argument. See, this is the other thing I'm going to make. This is an interesting point. People, they always miss this point. They say it's most deserving versus best. It never was that. It's always been a combination of the both. If it was most deserving, there's no point of a committee because most deserving lacks all nuance. It would just be Washington at number 1 because they have the best resume, Michigan at number 2 because they're undefeated, Florida State at number 3. It just doesn't make sense to me, the idea that, it has to be most deserving when the committee is formed to have the nuance to find the best teams. And then people say, could it be based on the best teams? Well, the 4 best teams in college football are Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, and Ohio State. And Georgia and Ohio State are going to be left out. So it's not just based off of the best teams. It's based off of a combination of best and most deserving with nuance thrown in there. And that's why Alabama should get in front of Florida State, in my opinion. And I'm certainly not an SEC mouthpiece. It's just the reality of the situation. We can understand that if Florida State makes the playoff, they will not be competitive in their bowl game. It is sad. You would think maybe if Florida State blows out Louisville, but that game was horrible. Both of the conference championship games last night were terrible. The Big Ten dug its own bed with that. Just horrible. The idea that Iowa should be in the Big Ten conference championship. Yeah, they have the right, really. It's just based off the ridiculous divisions. It will be interesting after the top 4. Will they put Georgia at number 5 or Ohio State? If Georgia is at number 5, Ohio State really lucked out because they don't have to face Louisville. Georgia would have to face Louisville in the Orange Bowl. Yes, the Orange Bowl. And Ohio State possibly faces Ole Miss. Wow, you know who's not even on here is Oregon. Oregon completely left out, even behind Missouri in terms of the top 9 in strength of record. So guys, good riddance to this 4-team playoff. It is absolutely ridiculous that, teams like Ohio State, Georgia not competing, not for a chance at the national title, especially Georgia. They lose 1 game at the end of the year. It is what it is. And it's all arbitrary too. Like, a lot of this depends on when you lose the 1 game, So it is what it is. Either way, my final prediction, it is going to be Michigan, very likely. They will be the number 1 overall seed. They will take on Alabama. Not a great matchup for Michigan, honestly. I'm thinking that game is going to be the Rose Bowl game. Michigan will have their pick of the litter. They will not face Alabama in SEC country in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. So that game will be the 5 o'clock game, the Rose Bowl game. And then the night game, the Sugar Bowl, will very likely be Texas taking on Washington. And I think that's a great spot for Texas to be in. I understand Washington is undefeated. But that could be a very good game for Texas, possibly to get to the national title. And then you would have FSU, the first team out. I'm guessing they would give them that. They would be at number 5, and they would be headed to whatever. Oh, you know what? They would actually be headed to the Orange Bowl. So it would be FSU versus either Ohio State or Georgia in the Orange Bowl. FSU, of course, with a backup quarterback. They're going to be pretty big underdogs no matter what. Either way, we will see. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.